Welcome back to Lakeside for Race 2 at Round 6 of the 1995 Australian Super Touring Championship. Race 1 saw another win for Paul Morris. He's third in a row and he's fourth from the last 5 to consolidate his lead in the championship. We had a fantastic run in our Hyundai to finish third, our first podium of the year, but it'll be hard for us to follow that up in race number 2 after the rain had drenched the track for the second qualifying session on Saturday afternoon. We got caught out as the track dried towards the end of the session, which meant us and Steve Hardman, our teammate, are starting off the back of the grid. Tony Scott had a few adventures in the Volvo during qualifying, but he still wound up well inside the top 10. But it was Audi territory as they dominated the early part of the session, and even though the track dried out towards the end, it was still enough for Greg Murphy to cement pole position in his Audi alongside Jeff Brabham in the first of the Diet Coke BMWs. Brad Jones out of position number 3 alongside Paul Morris, the championship leader. Steve Ellery got a second in race 1 and he lines up in 5th for this heat, and alongside him is Graham Moore, who followed us home in 4th place in race 1. From 7, Tony Scott, as we mentioned in the Volvo, despite a few offs, he still managed to get 7th spot. Jeff Allen in the Ford Mondeo is alongside. A great effort in qualifying from Paul Pickett to end up in 9th in his BMW with Jeff Full alongside. From 11, way back, Stephen Richards, who of course dominated Heat 1. He's joined by Justin Matthews on row number 6. Row 7, the two BMW M3s, Bob Holden and Paul Nelson. Mark Adderton way back in 15th in the Peugeot. We're out of 16 after, as I said, missing the jump in qualifying when the track dried out. Steve Hardman, he was in the garage with us. He wasn't able to capitalise on the drying track either, so the two Hyundais are off the back as we're set to go for race number 2.
Late afternoon sunlight belting down on Lakeside. Away we go for race 2. All the BMWs in front of us and get around Matthews. Justin, Jeff Full in front of us. Get down to turn 1. Can we get ahead of Stephen Richards? Out of the carousel. Around the back of the circuit the first time, so we're ahead of Richards, so 17th to 11th in half a lap. Not too bad. Down to Hungary Corner for the first time, chasing Jeff Full. Paul Pickett's got a good start in the BMW. Full a bit wide. Oh, we're sideways, cold tyres. Cold rear tyres as ever. Down the hill, round end the first lap. Full in the Peugeots ahead of us. Stephen Richards had a poor qualifying session, as we did. The carousel. Run on full. His first meeting of the season here at Lakeside. Richards all over the tail of us in the 155 Alpha. Curbs. Down the hill. Front straight. Try and time we get hosed in a straight line by the Valvoline Alpha. Richards around the outside of Full. Full fights back. Great little dice here. Richards hanging it out. Full holding on to it though. Down to Hungary. Will Richards have a go at Full? He's balked himself. We'll get up the inside. Run it full as well. we're ahead, so we're into 10th. Mark Addison joining the back of the battle as well. Oh, what happened there? Tail comes around. I think it's the next one on our list. Gear right under the bridge. The cars we're racing with here, the Peugeots and the pickup BMW, they're having their first run this year with aero kits in this round. Oh, Addison's gone past everyone. He's made 3 spots in 2 corners. Richards is around us somewhere. Run on the Alpha. Qualified on the front row for race 1. No doubt was expecting a bit more from this weekend. Pick it wide. Can we go up the inside of Richards? We can. Can we give him a nudge? This is where, as I said, Richards was expecting to be at the front of the field this round. Messed up the gear change onto the front straight, so Richards straight through. He'll go and have another go at Paul Pickett. In fact, goes straight underneath. Can we get a run on the BMW off the corner? No, we can't. 2-door BMW from the 92 British Touring Car Championship. It's the model that Paul Pickett's driving. Oh, he brakes early. Muscle our way through. So, 11th place. Richards. Try and get our eye on again. Down the hill. Richards skipping away, so the leaders hitting a bit of lap traffic because we just don't seem to have the pace we did in Heat 1. End of the season now. There's only 2 rounds left, 4 races, 2 races at Winton and then 2 races at Eastern Creek. hard slog of a season, 16 races in the Hyundai. Happened a few times this year. We're sort of in no man's land at this race at the moment. 5 seconds to the car in front, 5 seconds to the car behind. There's a BMW M3 off to the left, so an early retirement. So early retirement, we're already a third of the way through the race. Car off down the bottom of the hill. One of the Faber-Castell BMWs. Paul Nelson. Which means it's Bob Holden off in turn 1. Yeah, that's definitely black. It's not the blue of Justin Matthews' car, which is the third of the M3s. Gaggle ahead of us. Could be an opportunity. Through the kink. Jeff Allen's dropped to the back of this pack, so he's down in 10th now in the Ford Mondeo. No doubt this is a track that's hard on front-wheel drive cars and their front tyres. You're basically turning the whole lap except the front straight. And it's in there, high-speed corners. A lot of load on the front end of the cars through these corners. Straight. 6th gear. Long gap back to Paul Pickett. Here we go. It's good to see the Peugeots getting amongst the leaders now that they're got an aero kit. Down the hill, so Allen, the first one to fall into our prey. Car 77. To 3rd gear. The carousel. Pos hyped. Ford Mondeo for Ross Palmer Motorsport. Car through Hungary corner, over the loop. So a bit of damage to the back of the Mondeo. Perhaps a dented bumper, or maybe a missing bumper. Looks like a bit of lappery going on here as well. As we pick up inside of Allen. Oh, and they all balked themselves up, so we make 2 spots. Adderton's trying to argue. Oh. Oh. Just swung like a pendulum once I applied the brakes. Costly error, but Allen's been held up as well, so we'll go to the inside. Justin Matthews. Allen followed us through. We've both lost a lot of time. What is now the last points paying position in the race. Oh, Allen straightens us up. Oh, no. No, no, no. That's just all gone wrong this race. Such a good result in race 1. Matthews putting a lap down, tries to argue it. Ahead. This is a hard track to talk and drive on because you've got to just 100% attention at all times. The tracks, the bumps and the dips and the waves. It's one of the toughest tracks in Australia. Fifth gear. Front straight. Interesting to see what today's results do to the championship with just 2 rounds to go. Paul Morris, after his double win at Malala, is started to open up a bit of a lead, and then of course he won race 1 here. With 24 points on offer for a win, it's hard to build up a big lead, and it's easy to lose your lead. Up ahead, so if there's a bit of lappery going on, they might hold each other up. chance to close up. It'll be awfully hard for us to get another podium in race 2. Nelson onto the straight. Alum ahead of us. Of course, Alum's made up the time he lost as well, so it sort of reset everyone. To the back straight, back part of the circle. Rather, certainly not a straight. Of course, this round was famous of the three-way, 2 Audis and a BMW going through the kink. Darrell Eastlake screaming on the commentary. Right about here, they went 3 wide and then completely 3 wide through the kink. Find it on YouTube, it's quite readily accessible on there. Championship, as I said, Darrell Eastlake doing the commentary. He was the lead commentator for Channel 9. I think a voice that would have popped up occasionally, perhaps overseas. Very much Australia's sort of Murray Walker in terms of the sound that he brought. Mike Raymond brought his own sound as well, but I think Darrell Eastlake was a bit more in the vein of Murray Walker. The lead callers of Australian motorsport in the 80s, particularly Mike Raymond. I guess you'd throw Gary Wilkinson in there with him on Channel 7. And you had Will Hagan, who was a staple across sort of anything that wasn't on Channel 7 or Channel 9. Called for the ABC, called for Channel 10, SBS. As to the pits goes Jeff Allen with a problem, so we're now in the points in 10th. That's a shame. As I said, and then Hagen across anything that wasn't 7 or 9. Mike Raymond along with Gary Wilkinson on Channel 7, and then Darrell Eastlake led the commentary on Channel 9. Called anything he did with a lot of mumbo, as he'd say. Inside grass there as we come into the straight. It's our fastest lap of the race. To go at the end of this lap. Stephen Richards is the target. No doubt a very disappointing day for him. Let's get to the end of Richards. Lot of curb through there. Looks like the Volvo ahead of Adderton and Richards. Going to be a couple of laps too far, I think, away. Chased him hard though. 25 seconds back to 11th, who I would assume is Paul Pickett. Oh. Too hard into the carousel. This wasn't a crash, but... ah, well. Disappointing race 2. After the high of race 1. Checkered flags out. Straight. So the Queensland round of the Australian Super Touring Championship for 1995 is completed. We have a 3rd and a 10th from the 2 races. What has that done to the championship though up the front? Let's go check it out.
Quite an entertaining race there in the end for us, even though we didn't make a lot of headway off the back of the grid, but we still managed to just sneak home with a top 10 finish. At the front of the field though, Paul Morris gets another win, his 4th straight, his 5th from the last 6, and he beats home Brad Jones by 0.3 of a second. Greg Murphy 3rd in the second of the Oryx Audis, Steve Ellery 4th and top privateer, ahead of Jeff Brabham in the Works BMW, while Graham Moore picked up 6th place. Back in 7th, Tony Scott in the Volvo ahead of Mark Adderton, Stephen Richards 9th, while we trailed home in 10th ahead of Paul Pickett and Jeff Full rounding out the top 12. That leaves the championship looking like this with just 4 races to go. Paul Morris has eked out a massive 46-point lead over his teammate Jeff Brabham. Back then to Brad Jones in 3rd, Greg Murphy 4th, Stephen Richards in 5th, just ahead of Steve Ellery in the Chelgrave BMW. 7th is Jeff Allam in the Ford, 8th Graham Moore. We're up to 9th, clear of Tony Scott in 10th. 11th is Charlie O'Brien, who's still holding on to his early season points, while Mark Adderton sits in 12th. The Privateers points table is a very similar story to the outright points. Steve Ellery has a 40-point lead over Stephen Richards. Despite Richards being ahead in the outright points table, Ellery's got a big lead because obviously points are allotted differently for the Privateers. Graham Moore back in 3rd, then a big gap back to Paul Nelson, Paul Pickett and Mark Adderton rounding out 6th. While in the Manufacturers' Championship, BMW has strided away to a big lead now over Audi. Back to Hyundai 3rd, with Volvo sitting in 4th. So we set our sights now from Queensland down to Winton in Victoria for the penultimate round of the season. 4 races to go. The championship is still very much up for grabs. Thank you for watching this event, and we look forward to you joining us from Winton soon. Bye for now.